M4A2 is one of many types of Sherman tanks in the game, but unlike previous variants in the tech tree, this one has certain advantages that justify its higher battle rating. The default solid armor piercing round this tank uses is bad. Get rid of it. You want to unlock APHE round ASAP. This is the main round you want to be shooting through that cannon of yours, which technically means that you are getting rid of APHE rounds as well every time you shoot them, but this is a good way to get rid of your rounds, because it makes your opponents sad. This is how Evil War Thunder is. You make players on the other team sad, and the game rewards you for that. APHE rounds have enough post-penetration damage to one-shot opponents in most cases, if you hit a crew compartment area, but there are a couple of issues. First of all, you have to hit an opponent, which is not so simple at longer distances, since the muzzle velocity is only slightly over 600 meters per second. This doesn't make your rounds significantly slower than everyone else's. At battle ratings around 4.0, there are many tanks that have slow rounds, but at the same time, half of your opponents will have advantage over you in long-range engagements. And another issue is that I lied. When I said that in order to one-shot you have to hit the opponent's vehicle's crew compartment area, it was a lie. You don't have to hit it, you have to penetrate it. And since these rounds have a relatively low penetration, heavy tanks will be a problem. And at Sherman's battle rating, there are quite a lot of heavy tanks, which translates to quite a lot of problems. In order to penetrate vehicles like Soviet KV-1 and British Churchills, you will have to hit their weak spots at 90 degrees, and considering that opponents will often angle their hull, they will become impenetrable. At long distances, it gets even worse. Your round loses so much penetration that even hitting opponents' sides will result in hitting and not penetrating. If you pay attention, you will notice that there are almost no clips of me destroying heavy tanks. That's because I wasn't able to do that, for that simple reason that I simply cannot penetrate them. Disengaging was the smartest thing I did when facing heavies, since that at least allowed me to live and have a chance to fight other vehicles. But when it comes to penetration, this M4A2, unlike the previous Shermans in the tech tree, has an ace up its sleeve. You can research an armor-piercing composite rigid round, which has significantly more penetration, especially at close range. Have I started to destroy heavies after getting this round? No, but at least I was able to critically hit them before running away. With APCR rounds, you still have to aim at weak spots to penetrate armor, and they do very little damage. Usually, the opponent receives no serious damage and destroys me, or it takes so many rounds to destroy a heavy tank with APCR projectiles that someone else finishes the opponent first. So this tank has difficulties when dealing with heavily armored opponents. But when it comes to open-top vehicles and various trucks, which are quite plentiful at low battle ratings, the M4A2, just like most American tanks, can easily deal with them using high-caliber machine gun. So easily that I don't even see a reason to take high explosive rounds into battle. Why waste time reloading the main cannon when you can use machine guns immediately? Even despite the reload is relatively short. With Aced Crew, the cannon is reloaded in 5 seconds. That's faster than pretty much any tank you will be playing against. The only exceptions are opponents with very small caliber cannons. And even when you play against such opponents that reload faster, their small cannon won't have that much penetration to easily penetrate M4A2. Because this tank sometimes may feel like a heavy one. In front, it has a 64mm thick and, most importantly, sloped plate, while the turret is up to 76mm, and overlapping gun-mantlet plates may offer 140mm of armor that not many vehicles will be able to penetrate. Even some heavy tanks have less protection than certain parts of this Sherman. If not for relatively weak side armor, it could be easily classified as a heavy tank. Furthermore, it's the first Sherman in the tech tree that allows you to research add-on armor modification to add tracks to increase protection in those areas by additional 20mm. By the way, do you know how musicians call this kind of add-on armor? Heavy metal tracks. With all this in mind, when angling the hull, you can feel quite invincible when fighting on top of the list against weaker opponents. Just like heavy tanks, M4A2 performance is very sensitive to being up-tiered or down-tiered. The mobility of this tank is relatively good for a vehicle with such good protection. The maximum speed of 48 kph makes this modification of Sherman the fastest out of all Shermans in the game. It doesn't mean that you will reach this speed during the gameplay, since the acceleration is not so good, but still, it's the fastest Sherman in the game, at least for these couple of seconds you move down a steep hill. The reverse is 6 kph, which could be better, but at the same time, most vehicles at Sherman's battle rating have similar reverse, so I was happy with what I had. What most of the vehicles don't have is a stabilizer. As long as you move slower than 25 kph, you can fire while driving, and still hit your targets, since your cannon doesn't move on every bump on the road. When you do want the cannon to move, the turret rotates at normal for medium tank speed of over 20 degrees per second. The gun's depression of 10 degrees is good, but it's usual for most tanks, except Soviets. And smoke grenades are also usual for every medium tank, except Soviets. In arcade, penetration can become a bigger issue, since more people will play heavy tanks. But at the same time, aiming cross will help you to hit weak spots, both by displaying penetration indicator color and helping with slow projectiles ballistics. There will be way less trucks in arcade, so the machine gun becomes less useful against ground vehicles, but it's completely opposite when it comes to planes. They will be intentionally crashing into ground all the time. Just one hit with a bullet before they crash is enough to be rewarded. I would say that M4A2 has slightly better performance in this game mode. The vehicle has its improvements over previous models of Shermans, though increased battle rating means that the effectiveness remains on pretty much the same level. The only good thing is that as a rank 3 vehicle, it can be used to complete daily tasks, achievements during events, completing wagers, and so on. I would rate M4A2 6 benches out of 10. While it has a good frontal armor comparable to heavy tanks, just like those same low BR heavy tanks, it suffers when it comes to destroying other armored vehicles, since the round has quite low penetration. On the other hand, APHE will usually one-shot opponents when you can successfully penetrate them, and high-caliber machine guns will help to deal with less protected vehicles without even using the main cannon.